This is in the ring from Vanguard, Gerardo, Hernandez.
What do you think of when you reflect on Gerardo Hernandez and his couple of years here?
First of all, I just think tremendous hard worker, a tremendous person, and very coachable. I mean, and his journey wasn't easy, so, and the best part about it is he's a true trailblazer. He went to another university that started from ground zero, and he comes over to another university started from ground zero, and he wanted to pave a way, and he has, and that's what makes him special. He's not looking for a path, he's going to make a path, and that's been, what he's been doing from day one, so very special.
Gerardo Hernandez, national champion at 174 pounds in the NAIA. How does that sound?
It sounds surreal. It doesn't sound normal. It doesn't sit like normal. It doesn't sit in a sense that it's very normal to me yet. So I get a little bit of, there's just like a reminder every time because I kind of blur it out, but I'm like, oh, I really did that. So it sounds surreal.
Obviously, this is not your first soiree into the NAIA National Tournament. You've been there a couple times. What did those times teach you as you entered into this final one here in your wrestling career?
Realistically, I've been to 4 national tournaments. The first 3 I went to, I was in the exact same position every single time. I was a match away from placing, so I was top 12 in the country and only top 8 All-American. So every time I lost a match to place. So clearly I learned how to face adversity and keep coming back. I keep coming back every year. It's hard to fail 3 times in a row, so to come back with high hopes every year and still falling short is something that just taught me to stay the course. It taught me to stay the course, and I came back from my last year, and I didn't know what was going to happen. Nothing was set in stone. Nobody knew that I was going to be even an All-American. My goal was just to break that curse, get through to the top 8, So obviously I wanted to be a national champion, but I knew that it was going to be tough because every time I go to the national tournament, whether I'm injured, whether things are not going my way, I fall short. So it taught me to just keep showing up, keep showing up. And that's what I did.
When did you get into wrestling?
I started wrestling when I was in the age of 11, I believe. So I got into it at a pretty young age. I didn't get serious till high school. I was going to practices. I was doing the regular things, but I didn't start really taking it as an avenue for me to go to college even till I got to freshman year or sophomore year of high school. So
what got you into it? Because it's not a traditional California sport, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. Although California is very good, everybody opts out for different sports like football and other things. But I think one of the biggest things that got me into it was my older brother wrestled. He got into it randomly. He just showed up to a practice one day and said, I need wrestling shoes. So then what happened is that my high school, because of me and my older brother, because I have a younger brother as well, we all wrestled. So because of us wanting to wrestle and start something, they opened up a youth club at my high school. I kept shut up at high school, and I ended up being one of the first guys to join that youth club. It was just my younger brother and I, and then there was one more guy who ended up being my partner in high school. His name's Corey Shackelford. So there was 3 of us just going to practice and just kind of learning the basics, rolling around, breaking a sweat, nothing too serious. So yeah, I started wrestling because of my older brother Juan, and my younger brother Rodrigo joined wrestling with me. So we ended up just starting as for fun. We just show up to practice after the high school practice, and we just roll around, learn the new techniques. But realistically, we were just there to have fun. I never had any idea that it would amount to anything in general, to be honest. So I just joined for fun, and I ended up doing well. So it's It's a lot of fun. It's cool to look back at.
What were you playing at the time?
I actually played soccer my whole life. I was a goalkeeper, so I grew up playing soccer my whole life. And also, my first 2 years of high school, I played football. But I realized when wrestling started getting really serious for me, and I started actually realizing okay, I think I want to go to college for this. This is what I want to do. I had to give up football my first 2 years. So I didn't give it up, but I had to stop playing football. And a lot of people question why? Why'd you play? And I actually had to stop playing soccer as well because I was still playing club soccer in high school. So, but things started getting intense. I started training 2 times a day, waking up at 4 a.m. to run as a high school kid.
That's unique.
Yeah. So things like that started getting in the way. So I was okay, can't be a master of all trades, and jack of all trades, master of none. So I had to really sit down and talk to my family and be okay, I need to give up football, I need to give up soccer, and I need to fully focus into dive into wrestling, and this is what I want to do. And they fully supported it. And although it sucked, I loved doing the other things. I understood that to be great, this is what I needed to do. Maybe somebody else could have juggled all 3 sports, but for me, I realized I need to dial in and just go all in on wrestling.
What was the one thing that drew you to wrestling more than the other 2?
I think when I did sport, when I played sports, I was always the captain. I was always the leader, and that's cool. I thought that was okay. I like being the captain. I like being the leader. But I realized that I also like to depend on myself too. So I realized that sometimes I would get a little bit frustrated with teammates. We all do, in each type of sport. But there was a lot of things that I would do. I would go really hard. I would go all out, and some of my teammates, I'd have to pick up the slack of other people. And it happens. It's sports. But I realized that what. If I could just rely on myself and just worry about me and just wrestle. Obviously there's a team aspect to wrestling, which is really cool, and I love all the guys that I've ever wrestled with on any team. But I feel once you go out there on the mat, it's just you. You don't really have to rely on anybody, which is a blessing and a curse because you do well. It's you, but you do terrible, then you can't blame anybody. You can't point fingers at anybody. It's just you. So I think I really like taking on that responsibility of just. It's me, myself, and I, and then I have to go out there and put it on the line, So that's what drew me big time. Yeah.
Capo Valley, you're one of the more decorated guys on their history page. Talk a little bit about your high school wrestling experience. You're up there in takedowns and individual wins, and you're one of the top placers in terms of total podiums in the state and whatnot.
Yeah. I think my time at Capo was very interesting because I had a couple coaches, and I had my freshman and sophomore year. My sophomore year, so I wrestled freshman year, right? I didn't really care to do well, if I'm being honest. Not that I was being careless. It's just I didn't think it was possible. My goal was to make the varsity lineup, and that was it, But I ended up my freshman year. I started the season, and I ended up getting all the way to 14-0, I believe. It was 14-0, and my head coach, Coach Bordner, he sat down and he's hey, you're doing pretty well, right? And I was just oh yeah, I'm in the varsity lineup. That's all I care about. I don't really care about anything else. And he's yeah, you have a chance to become a CI placer and be good. And I was just kind of not calling his bluff, but just really not really believing yet. I'm 13, 14. I wasn't really invested like that yet. So what happened is I do well my freshman year. I ended up being a CI runner-up my freshman year, and I ended up falling short of going to state. So I'm a CI runner-up, but I'm just still kind of just that kind of lit a fire in me, and I was okay, I can do things, and I'm only a freshman, and a lot of people were telling me hey man, you're gonna be really good one day, and I was just yeah, I don't know, because it's tough to foresee the future, especially at that age. You don't really think you're ever gonna amount too much, So then sophomore year came around, and then I had another coach, Resnick, who moved from Wisconsin to Mission Viejo, and so he came as well, and he kind of showed me the ropes, big time, changed. He humbled me a little bit. I was coming into my sophomore year kind of out football. I was feeling good. I was feeling strong, and he was just telling me there's a lot. You have a lot of potential, but there's a lot of work to be done still, right? So he came in and he took the reins and he kind of fixed things that I was missing, and he kind of dialed in certain things. And again, I also had a coach Shaq as well, who really he's the one that kind of played a big role in my mental game. he was very like, let's work hard and like, let's go out there and dominate. Like, I know you want to go out there and win, but we need to dominate, you know, like we don't need to just win by 1 point or 2 points. We need to dominate. You need to be assertive and aggressive. And I think that's where I got my more mental aspect of things, like mental side of things. But Coach Bordner and Coach Resnick really played a big role in my high school career. Bordner was very consistent. I've wrestled with him since I was 6. Yeah, I wrestled with Kevin as well, but Coach Bordner, since I was 11, my bad, to 6th grade. And so I came up all the way with him all of high school. So Bordner was very persistent, and then Resnick and Shaq were the assistant coaches, and they really played a big role as well in my success by, you know, giving me pointers and telling me things that really helped elevate my mindset. So I think that's what, in high school, all the accolades are cool, you know, but I think having a group of great men around you that push you to get your grades up, to show up to your workouts with the right attitude, just to be a better person is what really solidified my time there, and like solidified my success there, you know.
Expand a little on the mental aspect of wrestling, because for folk style, I mean, wrestling in general, obviously a very physical sport, and you're trying to literally put your weight over the other person and send them to the ground. And that takes a lot of strength and durability with that, because you have to then counter that for upwards of 7-9 minutes potentially with no breaks. But there is that mental aspect, especially in these tournaments, which is where we're driving towards here for the national tournament, but of having to rebound if you're down in a period or you lose a match, you have to go through consolation side.
Exactly. Yeah, I think the mental side of things is just, for me, I was very prepared, but there was a lot of times in high school, even in college as well, where I would lose, not because I was not better than the guy, but, you know, I would doubt myself, you know, and I would have doubts, you know, those doubts always creep in no matter how prepared you are. So I think I would let them take over a little bit, if I'm being honest. You know, not everything's perfect on this side, but I think those doubts would creep in a bit, and it was kind of tough to fight them off sometimes. And even when I would win like by a point, by 2 points. And my high school coaches, all the way to my college coaches, to my last coach, Caleb, they would always be like, hey man, like, yeah, I get you won, but like, you can do more. Like, you could have dominated. You could have majored the guy. You could have teched the guy. You know, but I just kind of wanted to get in and get out type thing. Like, oh, I'm too nervous. Like I'm gonna be very assertive. I'm gonna play my cards right. Like, sometimes you just have to let it fly, right? So I think, in the sense, I was always prepared, but sometimes I would lack that mental strength in moments where things got tough, and I think that's why I learned, right? So I would always trust, I would always make sure, I would train really hard, and I would always trust in my coaches, and so every time I would face something, when I did have success, and I would face something that was like a bump on the road, or anything like an injury or a defeat or a loss, because I got third a lot in high school. I would lose in the semis or quarters and come back and win, and everybody's like, that's so cool of you that you don't just cash out, like you come back and you get third, like you only lost once. I'm like, yeah, and I was just like, yeah, you're right, I do come back after adversity. So I started giving myself a little bit of credit as I got older. I'm like, I do it the hard way, you know, like I keep getting third, you know, I got third at the Masters twice. I got third in the state of California my senior year. I got third at Nationals my junior year. So I was just like, they used to call me the king of third. And I think, like, obviously it kind of sucks, you know, you lose, but realistically it says a lot about a person who's willing to come back after a tough loss or after facing adversity, or even in my high school career, I had times that the matches wouldn't go my way, you know, and the ref kind of got in the way, but there's no excuses, right? Like, I have to come back, regroup, and get back at it. So I think I faced a lot of adversity in the sense of like losing and like things not going my way, even when I was prepared, you know? Just because you're prepared and you're ready to go and you did all the training doesn't mean things are always gonna go your way, right? So I think I was battling with that in the beginning. I was like, dang, like I really train 2 times, 3 times a day. I do everything right. I eat the right things. I come with the right attitude, and I'm still falling short of things, you know? But I started to realize that, you know, it's not for me to like worry about that. I just need to be worried about showing up every day and keep doing what I'm doing, and I'll stay the course and I'll come back, you know? And I faced a lot of adversity, so I was willing to just, you know, keep my nose down, keep working hard, and keep showing up, you know? That was just my thing, you know?
What would be your highlight moment then from high school? I
think placing at the state tournament was my biggest thing, only because the year before I was top 12, like kind of like I was at nationals here. So I think placing at the state tournament was one of my biggest accomplishments just for me in general, because I got to break through that wall of top 12, and like I've never played at the state tournament before. So I was doing very well in other aspects, like CIF, I won it 3 times and things like that. And everybody was proud of me, right? Everybody's like, oh, good job. But like when you have that chip on your shoulder where you know you're like, I'm falling short here. And so I get to the state tournament and I lose in the quarters. So that means I still have to wrestle one more to even place. So then I wrestle that match to place and I dominate that match. And it was just domination from there to all the way to third. So I think just knowing that right before I started wrestling in college, I did like my last run, and it was like, obviously I faced adversity. I did end up winning a state title, which is my goal. I ended up coming back and just literally solidifying like my success, and then winning my last high school match. So I think winning my last high school match really sat well with me.
Yeah.
I got to leave on a good note, but I knew there was more to give. So I think placing at the state tournament was like my highest, like finally, at least, like I placed, I didn't win it, but I went on a ramp where like I just won every single match after I lost my quarters match. And I eventually lost at the state tournament as well. So I can't really ask for more. I felt blessed, and I was like, okay, that was my high school career, now on to the next thing,
Some nice symmetry here that we've got building then, because you then go on to college and you end up first at Life Pacific.
Yeah.
You actually do pretty well your first year there, don't you?
Yeah. I won a conference title there as a freshman, and I was like, and then I win it, and my coach at that time, Arson as well, who played a big role too, he tells me, you know what you just did is kind of crazy, right?
That's what I was going to say. How you come out of nowhere and everyone's probably going, who's this Gerardo kid?
Exactly. And he's like, you know what you just did, right? Like, it was a little bit crazy. And I was just kind of like, again, I started back to square one. You're the top dog in high school, and now you're back down to you're a freshman. Like, you're back at square one. So now here's like I don't know, like the magnificent or like the big deal about this, but like I did it. Yeah, okay, like that was great. That was fun. And he's like, now you got a national tournament. You could place, man. You could place. You could do it. And I show up to a national tournament. I fall short. And then so that's when like the adversity comes in again. That sets in my mind the adversity. I'm like, here we go. Like everything was going well, and I face adversity again. So that's how it went. So.
What was it? Were you during that run that first year? Were you like, wow, this is easy, or were you just like, I'm just me. I'm building. Like, let's go.
Actually, it was very tough because I wrestled at 184. Fun fact: I wrestled 184 since 6th grade, 184 pounds. So I wasn't the most fit kid. So like I was like 4'11", super wide. So it was kind of funny. So I wrestled 84 all of high school. So I get to college. I wrestled 84 first half of season, and for the first time since probably 5th grade, we make a decision to drop down to 174. So in my head, even though like most people are like, oh, that should be easy. Like you're not that tall. Like you're 5'7". Like you should be able to weigh 184. It's kind of tough when for the last 8 years, you've been at the same exact weight, 184, and now you're all of a sudden like, oh, you got to drop to 74. So I was like a little thrown off. It was like kind of one of the most challenging times of my career because I was a freshman. I was learning how to actually start eating healthy. I had to dial in a diet. I had to figure out how to like dial in a diet and still feel good at training 2 times a day, 3 times a day. So I think my first year of college was actually like a character check moment for me. It's like, okay, like this is tough. And this was either going to make me or break me, So I got down to weight, and then I was having success at 174. I was doing very well, and so I think once I got there, I didn't really have time to think like, oh my God, I'm doing well. I was just thinking, oh goodness, at least I made the weight. Like this is so tough for me. Like this is scary. So I think I was just happy that I was there at that moment. That I stuck through the whole season too, like because a lot of those challenges like diets, changing weights, and obviously the college, how different it is from high school, it breaks a lot of people. And I was just like, hopefully I'm not one of those, and I don't blame people who like don't want to do it because it's very tough. It's not easy. So I kind of just character checked myself, and I was like, I got to get through this, So it wasn't like, oh, I came off a good high school career, now it's easy. No, it was actually really hard for me to adapt and kind of acclimate to things.
How hard is it to just say, all right, 10 pounds has got to go? Because you hear it with wrestling all the time. Like, I'm cutting weight. That just sounds, from a normal person who likes to eat food, terrifying.
It is very, I mean, to all of us, it's terrifying. It's more of like, you can't look at the bigger picture. Like, in the mental sense of things, it's like everything, like your matches, your eating habits, everything, all your habits. Like, you can't focus on like the big picture. You got to do one thing at a time. Like, okay, I'm gonna go to class. I'm gonna eat this meal at this time. I'm gonna cut let's see, I'm gonna work out right now. I'm probably gonna lose 2 or 3 pounds of water weight. Like, you're not really worried about like the 10 pounds. You're worried about knocking down 1 pound at a time, 1 pound at a time. Like, don't stress about like the whole, oh my goodness, I need to cut. No, like just one workout at a time, one meal at a time, one class at a time. Like, whatever you got going on in your day, it's probably like a stress management, right? Whatever you got going on, I feel like just, if you look at the big picture, you're gonna get spooked. You're gonna get freaked out, oh my goodness, I gotta cut 10 pounds. But in a practice, people lose typically like, the lighter guys would probably lose 4 to 5 pounds, like, or even 3 to 5, and the heavier guys would lose like more like on the 6 to 10 pounds sometimes even. So you just have to look at, like, okay, I have a practice right now, I'm gonna go as hard as I can, and I'll worry about the weight later, you know? And I think that comes with experience, of course. Some people might stress more about their weight when they're younger in college, because they're like still trying to figure out their bodies and things like that. But I think just one practice at a time. You wake up, your routine, you go run or do whatever, one meal at a time, one thing at a time. You don't have to worry about the big picture, because obviously you're going to get the big picture done, but you just have to worry about, Coach Caleb preaches a lot, is focus on what's next. Focus on what's important. Like, what's next is what's important. You know, if you have class, that's what's important. You know, if you have lunch, that's what's important now. If you have practice, that's what's important. If you have to go cut an extra pound, that's what's important, you know? So I just focus, just attack the day one thing at a time, attack the week one thing at a time, one day at a time, and you gotta get used to the routine, and you're fine, you know? So it's not too crazy to the point where like, oh my God, I'm gonna freak out. What I did is like, I got this many practices left in the week, and then I can go on an extra run if I have to cut the weight. But other than that, I mean, you just dial in and you just like get in a routine and you're good to go.
What was your go-to, I have to cut weight food?
Let's see. I think this year I was eating a lot of fish, you know, so like I have to cut weight. So like I was eating, like my morning consisted of like a big protein meal, like a big heavy protein meal, and then after that it'd be kind of light throughout the day, just to like get me through my crazy workouts. Like I'd have like a really good meal in the morning to get me through my day, and then I would just eat accordingly to like what I needed, like enough to get me through practices. And then at one point my weight was under control, so I was eating fine like a regular person. Like I was eating fine, good meals and things like that, because like this year for me, I dialed in big time on my weight, and we didn't have to worry about my weight. We just have to worry about getting better, getting stronger, and working hard, you know? So when you dial that in, you're good, right? But obviously, like there's moments you have to cut the weight. I would just eat like just the basics, chicken, fish, you know, some sandwiches here and there, but that's about it. Just enough to get me through my workouts. And if I was good on weight after practice, I could have a good dinner, you know? It just depends on the day.
So at least you've got a nice fallback option, be a dietitian.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Exactly, yeah. So honestly, I think I'm a great dietitian, but it's like everyone's body's different, right? Like what gets me through my workouts, you might not like. Like, oh, I can't eat that before my workout, you know, or vice versa, you know? So it's just interesting to see like how like everyone gets down to the way. Everybody's different. Everybody does different things. Everybody has different rituals as well. So it's pretty interesting.
What brought you then here to Vanguard? A couple years at Life Pacific, and then you end up here.
Yeah. I wrestled my sophomore year at Life Pacific, and then I again top 12 in the country, and then I come here, and the COVID year happens. You know, there's a coaching staff change at Life Pacific, so like the future was kind of unknown. It was a little bit rocky, like in the sense like adversity was coming up, and for once I was like, I have to make a decision right now. Like, do I stay or do I go? And it wasn't anything personal. It wasn't anything. It was just like something that I knew that I'd be happy at Vanguard already. I just had to make a decision whether I would stick it out, see what happened with the program at Life Pacific, or if I came back, or if I transferred out. It was just like a decision that, you know, you have to talk about with your family, you have to talk finances and things like that. So, I mean, I saw the group of guys they had here, and I was like, everything's solid there. Like, there's really no like problem going to Vanguard. Like, there's really no anything that's makes me say, I don't know about the program, everything was like, it was almost like perfect because I'm from Orange County, right? So it was like, why wouldn't I want to wrestle in my hometown? Like I can live at home and I can go to practice in school, you know, like if I ever need anything from home, I can go back home because I really like being home realistically. So I end up here and, you know, during the COVID year, I transferred this summer before COVID. So 2019, 2020,
Yep.
like starting the fall for 2019, right? Yeah. So then I end up here, and then COVID happened, so it gets a little crazy. So, but yeah, it was great. My first year here was kind of, I had to sit out because of the transfer, and also the COVID was going on, so there was like a lot of uncertainty and a lot of adversity that the team had to face. During those times, the coaches were scrambling. All of us were just kind of like...
Yeah, your sport isn't one for much distancing or any of that, right?
So COVID was very tough on us, and I think the coaches and the team did a great job of facing the adversity we had, and they kept pushing and they kept going. I was watching everything unfold because I was new, so I was just kind of like, I had to sit out, so I didn't get to compete that year, so I was just kind of like, geez, like if I had to compete this year, that'd be rough, you know? So I was just talking to the coaches about it and just kind of like watching them deal with the adversity. When I would see the dedication and time they would put into like figuring things out, when some guy popped with COVID or somebody had to sit out and like we had to replace that weight class, or we had to sit out for 2 weeks and they had to do Zoom calls, and just that intent they had, I realized I was in the right place. You know, I knew that they were serious about the program. They were serious. The guys were serious. The guys were dialed in, even though they had to face adversity. So I think my first year when I transferred in, I didn't get to compete, but I did get to experience a lot of what it's like to be a Vanguard wrestler. So I'm really happy with the decision I made. During that time, I was very happy. I was like, good thing I'm here. You know, I'm happy I'm here. You know, so yeah.
That year, the dynamic duo place up at Nationals. Mm-hmm. Then you get to enter into your first year, which I guess technically be your junior competition. Mm-hmm. So what did you take from their run as you then went through that next year as you make it to the national tournament for the first time as a Lion?
Yeah, I think what I take from them, it was
Armand
and Ricky.
Yep.
Those guys did everything right? So like they did everything right, and I was doing everything right with them, you know. So we were in the fire together, right? So I would see what the only difference that I would see is their mental aspect when they would compete. I'm like, okay, we're working out just as much as each other. We're doing everything right. We're showing up with a great attitude. We never complain. We do everything we have to do, right? But when I would see them compete, I would always see like this fire in them, right? And I'm like, I was like, do you guys get nervous? I would even ask them, do you guys get nervous? And they're like, yeah, we get nervous. I'm like, okay, well, you guys don't look like it. Like, you guys look dialed in. Like, Ricky, actually, I've had a couple conversations with him where I'm like, you're crazy, man. Like, you turn the switch on like this and you're ready to roll. And I talked to the coaches about it too, and they're like, yeah, that's just how that's how he rolls, and that's how he is. Like, you know, like, and then Armand was just always in tough situations, like really tough matches, and he'd always figure it out. Like, he'd always figure it out. And so I would watch it. I'm like, okay, like I'm a junior now, right? Like, so I understand what they're doing, and I get the process that they go through in the journey, like, to get to this point. But there was something I was missing in competition, you know, and it was like a little bit of confidence, you know, that fire in me. I was confident in my training, but there was a lot of things like injuries and things that got in the way that makes you kind of question like whether you're ready or not to like take on the tasks the task that's in front of you, you know. So I've had a couple injuries in my career, you know, so I think they hindered my mindset, you know. They hindered and they lingered longer than they should have, you know, in my head. So I think I was like, questioning whether I was ready or not for certain situations. Whether I was ready or not, we would never know. But it would really bother me when I would like be hurt, and it was hard for me to come back and try to get that same fire that they had and that I had at 1.2. You know, like my freshman year, I thought I was, you know, like I was having fun, and then now I'm like worried about my rib, I'm worried about my hamstring, I'm worried about my LCL, I'm worried about all these things that don't have to do anything with winning, you know. Like, I'm just worried about to just even be healthy enough to step on the mat. So I think there was a lot of things that hindered my mindset in that sense. But again, it's another stepping stone, another set of adversity that I had to go overcome to get where I am now, you know. So I think they just had that fire in them when they competed, and I kind of fed off of it, and I learned from it, and I was like, you just got to go out there and just have fun and do whatever you got to do. So they kind of showed me what I was missing. You know, we did everything together, everything was right, the practice, everything was good, and then when we get to competition, you could see that they had that mental like fire, like that mental edge on people. And even though I did everything they did, like I always say, like, there's no point of training like your body, you're like training like hard and doing all these runs if you're not training the mind, right? So I think they had the mind aspect part of it down, and I was still kind of working on mine because of the adversity I was facing in the moment, you know? So I think that was a big one for me.
It's a bit of a sore point because, of course, that year, your junior year, do pretty well. Armand wins the first Cascade Conference title as an individual for Vanguard.
Yeah.
Then you guys both go to the national tournament.
Yeah.
And then you both have to face each other.
Yeah. And then, you know, a lot of people don't like to talk about it, but I was open to it, you know, and it's just part of wrestling, you know, like I can't be upset at him and he couldn't be upset at me. Like, it's just like part of the wrestling. It's just how things unfolded, you know, and, you know, some people could say like, oh, it sounds cliche, but it's like, it's just God's plan. Like, you just don't know what God had in store for me later and things like that. And so that tournament, it was a tough one for me. I was wrapped up. I had pulled my hamstring really bad, and you know, and so he knew that, and everyone. We were just like, this is so unfortunate. Like, you know, nobody else knew that. Obviously, nobody else in the tournament knew that. So I think he knew that. I knew that. And we were just like in a tough situation, right? Like, I love the guy, he loves me, and it's just like, it's just respect. Like, we're gonna wrestle, and whatever happens, you know, like, it is what it is. Like, a lot of people were like, oh, like, how is it? I'm like, it's not awkward, it's not weird, it's like part of the sport. Like, you can't, if I would have won, he would have not been mad at me, and he ended up winning that match, which is the match to place, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of people were like, oh my goodness, must have been so tough. I was like, yeah, I was upset at losing, but I wasn't upset at him. You know, I was upset at losing. It could have been anybody, and I would have been just as upset. Anybody else could have beaten me, and I would have been just as upset, right? So for me, it wasn't about like, oh, my teammate beat me. It was more about like, dang, I didn't get to place. You know, I should have done more to win earlier and get through the round, you know, so I don't have to meet him and things like that, you know. So I think it was a very challenging moment, but of course, I think that challenging moment could have not been given to better people other than me and Armand, right? Like, I feel like both of us handled it in a way that it, you know, yeah, you won. Like, now I was cheering for him to get to win the next matches. You know, I was cheering for him, and after that, and you know, like, it is what it is, and you move on and you win from it. So I think I'm glad it kind of happened to him and I, because I think we're very similar in the sense that, you know, we understand that it's wrestling, and we're not going to be upset or awkward about it. You know, it is what it is, and it's just wrestling. You know, so at the end of the day, it's just wrestling, and you know, it is what it is. You know, so
harder or easier to wrestle someone that you practice with all the time?
Oh, much harder, much harder. Yeah, I know he knows me like the back of his hand, and I knew him like the back of my hand. So like, it's hard. It's really hard. You know, it's like, because think about it, it's hard to wrestle guys a couple times because they start picking up on your things, like what your favorite moves are, what you like to go to. So they even shut that down. And that's just wrestling guys like twice, or like from other schools, like twice or 3 times in the season. So can you imagine wrestling your partner that you drill like your best things on, that you guys give each other pointers, give each other tips. So you go out there and it's just kind of, if you watch the match, like really nothing was happening because we were just so like head to head, like we didn't know what to do because we were like, well, I know what you're going to go for, and he knew what I was going to go for. So it was just like, it just came down to overtime, I believe. And then, so he ended up getting a shot and taking me down, but it's a lot harder, for sure. Wrestling the person who knows you like the back of your hand. You're each other's coaches, right? You get each other better. So, I mean, it's just tough. It was hard to wrestle.
What's the benefit then of him then becoming your coach the next year, which is this year?
Yeah.
So you, in your run at that last national tournament, Armand and Ricky stay on to help this year's squad, and only one home event, which is bummer because we didn't get to see you a whole lot.
Yeah.
A lot of travel on the road, but we'll start with, what is his influence still being around to help coach you do for you?
I think both of those guys, they carry great traits with them. Not far beyond wrestling, they carry a great energy with them. You know, they're great human beings. They're great people. Obviously, if they weren't great people, they wouldn't be on the staff, right? But like that goes without saying. But in general, they really bring the energy. They and also it's a lot easier for the guys, not even just me, but for the guys to hear words from guys that just competed last year. You know, they were just there where I was. They were just there where the team, like the same tournaments we wrestled this year, they wrestled last year, you know? Same thing that we're doing right now, they did last year. So when they tell you something, you take it very serious because they walked where you're still walking, right? So I think having them in the room is something that not a lot of people get to have, you know, returning All-Americans coming back and giving back and training with the guys, putting their shoes on, training, wrestling with us. So I think I only benefited from that, you know? I think I only grew from it, and they helped me out. They pushed me to my limits. Sometimes it was tough, you know. I'd have Ricky, I'd have Kevin Kelly, the assistant coach, and then I'd have Armand, all three of them. I'd wrestle them all one day, and it was just grueling. And so, but I appreciate those moments, right? Even though they suck in the moment, but I appreciate it very much. So just having them there is just such a great tool that I was lucky enough to be a part of and have, you know. So not everybody gets to say, oh, I'm wrestling a 5-time All-American. I practice every day. Not everyone gets to say I'm wrestling Ricky, 2-time All-American here. So like things like that, like you don't have that every day. So I was very blessed, and I was grateful for them to be there for me. You know, Armand and I are great friends. Like even though he beat me, there's no big deal. Like we just moved on, and like now same way I cheered him on when he beat me that year conference. I mean at nationals. It's the same way he cheered me on this whole year for me. You know, like, and he was so proud when about the season. So I think it's just great having those guys there that get to be there with you in the fire. So, yeah.
Road Warriors. Mm-hmm. How hard is it to travel around and do this sport?
It's tough. You know, a lot of people, I feel like our sport's a little bit cruel in the sense that like everyone gets to travel, have fun, go to restaurants and eat, and like on the way to the competition, like we don't really get to eat much because we have to weigh in soon. So like we're very particular about our meals. Like the way there is kind of quiet. Everyone's kind of like almost close to weight, so we're all kind of serious. You know, obviously we're locked in to compete. You know, like the tension. If we have a rival coming up or someone's gonna wrestle someone tough, and we know it, we just kind of like chill, like kind of like take it for what it is. Try to like not get too nervous. Try to not get too anxious. And the coaches do a great job of keeping us like, you know, leveled and just relaxed. Obviously hyped and like ready to go to war, but also relaxed and grounded, right? So I think it's tough. It's tough traveling everywhere and competing, especially when you're on a plane and you're kind of hungry, but you don't know where your weight is at, so you like kind of wait to check your weight and then eat and things like that. So things of that nature, I think, makes it tough. You know, we don't really talk about it much because it's the norm for us, but it is tough, you know, and we're just tougher, if that makes sense. So it's tough, but we're tougher and we get through it. And on the way back, we joke around, we laugh about things, like, you know, and it's a lot, the energy's a lot higher. All of us are eating, all of us are drinking water, everything's fun. Nobody's really cutting weight anymore because we're coming back home. But on the way there, it does get a little bit, you know, serious. The energy's very, like, not low, but it's very, like, relaxed and, like, tense. And, like, we understand we're going to get ready to go to war. So, like, that's how it really goes.
What are you looking for when you're wrestling? Because a lot of people, if they're new to the sport, they see you grappling, the hand fighting, the technical terms about that. But when do you kind of see in your mind, there's the opening and I'm going to shoot this guy and try and take him down?
I think it comes with, when I wrestle this year, I was really focusing on just kind of staying patient and understanding that I got to get to where I'm good at, and understanding that I need to wrestle my match and I need to do what I need to do to win, right? So I think I was just focusing on, it's going to sound crazy, but like kind of breaking my opponent in a sense. And a lot of times, like, people who have wrestled before know the feeling of you're wrestling someone, they're strong, and then all of a sudden you kind of feel them deter a little bit. Like you kind of feel that their energy kind of drop, and yours is rising, and you're rising, and they're dropping, and they're breaking, right, in a sense. Not literally, but like they're just breaking mentally. Like they're kind of, in a sense, not meeting you at that energy that if my energy keeps going up, theirs is deterring. Like they can't meet me there, you know? So this whole year I was just worried about just being efficient with everything I was doing, and then obviously winning, right? I figured out how to win, but I also did figure out where I was good at. And sometimes I wanted to do things one way, but I was like, you can't be stubborn. You have to understand that not every match is going to be the same. Not every guy's going to be the same. So I had to adjust and adapt. So, I mean, far beyond shots and like takedowns and things like that, I just, in my mind, I was like, you can't do, wrestling's not cookie cutter. Like, you can't do the same thing on everyone. I mean, if you could, but in a sense, everybody's going to be different. Everything's going to be, not every match is the same. Even if with the same guys, not every match is the same. So you have to understand that. So for me, I was just like, I got to break the guy. I got to keep my energy high. I need to keep heavy hands, and I just need to keep wrestling, and good things will happen. And if chaos comes, like scrambles and things like that, I am ready for it. You know, if he shoots, I am ready for it. So in my mind, I was like, I'm ready for the hand fight. I'm ready for my defense is ready and solid. My offense is solid, and nobody can ride me, and we're good. Like, that's just how I rolled, and obviously I had some success thinking like that, but I trusted my training, and I understood like that I was prepared, you know. So.
I mean, losing once all season at the end of the day, that's pretty successful, I would say.
Yeah, you know, and that loss stung for a little bit. I got it back at Nationals, but it stung for a little bit. So I would say it was a pretty good season.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Travel all over the place, Life Open, out in Georgia, one of the big ones. Obviously, all the duels in the Cascade Conference sets you up for the tournament. And for the second year in a row, I feel like Nakota Siegel of Montana State Northern probably does not want to see another blue and gold wrestler at 174 pounds again.
Yeah.
You take him down in overtime just like Armand did the previous year. Relate a little bit about your Cascade tournament becoming the second straight and the second in Vanguard history individual champion.
Going into that tournament, I was just kind of nervous, really nervous, because I wanted to close out on a high note at that tournament. So I won it freshman year. My sophomore year, I think I get fifth. Last year, I pulled my hamstring in the semis, had to come back wrestle, and I ended up placing fourth, and I had to get bidden into the national tournament, you know, because, again, I was hurting everywhere. So, and then this year, I thought to myself, okay, you won it your freshman year. You had 2 years that were tough, regardless of injuries, regardless of anything on paper, you did not win it, right? So regardless if there's a good excuse or not, you didn't win it. So I was thinking, okay, now I need to close out what I started. You know, like I need to close out, I need to end on a bang, and I need to understand that this is my time now. Like, and for once, I'm healthy going into postseason. I don't feel any dings and bruises, because we were very methodical all season about where we're going to wrestle me and where we're going to sit out and take a break and things like that. So I was like, okay, this is my time's now, right? So, and I knew Dakota was on the other side, and at the time he was number 2 in the country. So I have total respect for the guy. The guy's a tough wrestler. You know, he's very tough to wrestle. Anybody who's wrestling can know.
Well, it took you overtime, so obviously you had to pushover.
No pushover, not whatsoever. But I wrestled all of my matches nervous. You know, like my first match I wrestled, and then the second match in the semis, I ended up winning with against one of his teammates, tough guy as well. So then I make the finals, and I have to make a choice right there, right? I'm like, okay, well, I'm ranked 6th in the country, and he's ranked number 2. Realistically, if I lose, no one's going to be upset. You know, no one's going to, like, tell me, oh, you should have done this and that. But in the back of my head, I'm like, I need to finish what I started. You know, I need to come back and get my conference title back for once, and then get on to nationals and let it fly, right? So that match was nerve-wracking. I was in the finals, and I was like, okay, like, I know he's tough, and I know he's tough, but I'm tough too, you know? Like, we're both tough competitors, and I'm going to go put it on the line, you know? And I gave up a first takedown there. Right away, I gave up a first takedown that period, and I had to come back and win an OT, but the whole match, I was kind of just relaxed. I was like, okay, I'm down 2-0, like 2-1, it is what it is. And the match is long. This is his first period. Like, I'm going to stay the course and be smart and wrestle tough. Just wrestle tough. And so he beat me twice before, so the last year. So it was tough. It kind of messes with you a little bit. You're like, oh,
here we go again.
Yeah, here we go again. Like, he's tough. Like, it's not easy. So I'm like, if I'm going to beat him, it's going to be a tough one, you know. So, and it ended up being very tough, but I got it done, and I trusted my training. I trusted my coaches, and I was like, And I ended up winning that, and I was just like, you know what, like, gotta trust myself, gotta trust the coaches, and just keep going at it, keep showing up, keep doing the things I'm doing, you know? So the conference tournament was finally like a deep breath, finally got it, finally won conference again. And then I was like, but then here goes the real thing. Like, here goes, like, now we're into the spot where I failed many times, you know? Like, and so that was tough. Like, I was like, okay, everybody celebrating, everyone's telling me how great job, good job. But realistically, I know what's next. I know what's at stake next, like my last national tournament. So although it was fun for like the couple hours I went in, or a day or two, after that, I was like, I gotta get locked back in. You know, yeah, that was cool. Winning my conference title again was cool, but there's a much bigger fish to catch still. So that was that.
Over the past couple of years, what are some of the things you've seen him grow the most in?
Honestly, just mental. I think that was his biggest hurdle or issue. You know, he's had adversity, you know, all throughout his career, but just finding that true belief in himself and understanding that he's the best in the country. It doesn't matter what day it is. He was the best in the country, and he showed it on the right day. So he's the man.
What was it like coaching him as he goes through the CCC tournament, ends up picking up the championship there?
Well, the crazy thing is, like, you know, as a coach, you know, he's a veteran, right? And we had a younger team, so I was really invested in some of our younger guys because, you know, I had to help them along, right?
Their first times and all that, yeah.
And, you know, the best part about it is all year I was talking to him and like, hey, I need you to bring these guys with us. Yeah, I know you're going to do great things, but you got to bring us with you, or bring them with you. And just watching him guide not only his own tournament, but trying to help and talk the younger underclassmen through the tournament. You know, he did a great job. And then, you know, come the big rounds, which are the semis and finals for him, you know, he was dialed in, you know, and, you know, you always face your doubts, right? You always face those negative thoughts, but you could literally see him face those negative thoughts, and shake them off and go focus on the positive and realize that, man, I am the best, you know. And each round he got better, you know, and it was amazing to watch him.
A great bookend, obviously, as you said, freshman year to senior year champion. Going to the national tournament, knowing it was your last run, did that add pressure, or did that just give you more motivation to say, yep, it's time and no one's stopping me?
The pressure was all season. The pressure was since last March when I lost, you know. I think that's when the pressure was in. So every morning I had to wake up at 5 a.m. to go work out since last March. Every practice, every meal, everything was, my conscience was thinking about the national tournament. So I think the pressure was built up, obviously, since I've started wrestling, right? Like since I started college. But the real pressure, imagine feeling pressure like that every single day for a year since last March, understanding that your last national tournament is gonna come. Like, time doesn't stop, right? So you're going to go wrestle there. Hopefully, obviously, if you're without injuries and things like that, but you know the time's gonna come and it's inevitable. That was a pressure. I think since the year before, on that March 6th or 5th when we came back from when I wrestled and I got top 12 that year, my training, the pressure hit then. The pressure's on. Like, you fell short again, and the pressure's on till the next national tournament. So I think that was the problem. So not the problem, but like that was like what pushed me all year. So I didn't take the summer off. For once, I was like within 10 pounds of my weight class all summer. I was dialed in. I was training like a madman, and people were like, when I had my home gym, like, what are you training for, man? You're crazy. And I'm like, I'm just training. You know, they didn't know. I wasn't gonna get into detail about like why or what I was doing, but I was like, I'm just a wrestler. So like, you know, I just gotta train to compete. You know. But in my head, I'm like, I gotta train for something that I've never overcame yet.
We're 360 days till I'm
back in business, you know? So I think that was something that's when the pressure came in. So when I went to nationals, that's when I don't think it's motivation. I think it was just, let's use that pressure to get here. Like, let that pressure make a diamond right now, you know? So I got to nationals and it was just like, I didn't feel the pressure. The pressure was kind of off. I'm like, I'm already here. If something bad happens or it doesn't go my way, that's it. Like, I'm already here. You know, like, I'm here and I got to make the best out of it right now. So the pressure was off because I already was there. But now it was time to show out and, like, show people and like show myself, show my family, show my coaches that all that pressure that was calculating throughout that whole year, that was like on me that whole year of training, that it made it diamond. You know, that it was good pressure. You know, that it pushed me to be better. So.
How did you try and prepare him for the national tournament?
Once again, national tournament, you know, thank God for Ricky, Armand, and Kevin Kelly. I don't mess with that dude. He's too big for me, too fast for me, too strong. I don't want to get hurt, okay? But, you know, I had those guys to really focus on him with his physical stuff, but mentally it's just reminding him who he was and who he is. Like I said, man, he's a very special person, and it's not about X's and O's with him. It was about the mental side and getting him to truly believe in himself.
First day goes according to plan. Pick up a couple wins, some a little easier. Must feel good.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Then you get to day 2, the big matches.
Mm-hmm.
Do or die, obviously, but at least you would have a chance to go to third. But
yeah.
Those last 2, if you lose, there's probably more of a disappointing factor in it.
Yeah.
So you take on life's Riley Smucker, and because the other one's a little more separation in the points between you and your opponent. But the last 2 matches were, as you expect, with the top 4 guys, because it was 1, 2, 3, 4 made it all to the semis. So walk me through a little bit about taking on Smucker, and then we'll get to the championship one.
I think my semis match was very, if I'm being completely honest with you, I was very relaxed that day, only because I was an All-American no matter what. And obviously I wanted to be a national champion, but I had already overcome what was stopping me, like what was the pressure. Like I needed to be an All-American. Like that was my thing. Like I've never All-American before. And so second day I was like, I get to just have fun now. Like I'm an All-American already. Worst, like hypothetically, worst I could do is 6th, right? So I'm like, I'm top 8, like I'm here. And so right before my semis, I kind of flipped the switch. I was like, oh yeah, like I'm an All-American, like things could go bad right now or I could lose and I'm still fine. But then I kind of, like literally a minute before my semifinals match, I was like, or I can make the finals and win it. And you know, and you have all these crazy thoughts in your head, and I was like, or I can make the finals right now. Like literally there's one match in front of me and I can make the finals if I win it. So I wrestled that match, and it was a very close match as well. I just kept hammering in, heavy hands again, same game plan, just staying the course, being smart, understanding what positions I'm good in, understanding that the guy's tough and I'm not going to be able to just roll him over or push him over, understanding that the moment is big, but don't make it much bigger than it really is. You know, it's just a wrestling match. I could wrestle this wrestling match in my backyard, and you know, I could wrestle this wrestling match in Kansas where I was at. Like, it's just a wrestling match at the end of the day, and I've been doing this for 11, 12 years, so it's like, just wrestle, just have fun, enjoy the moment. And then I realized I was like, if I win this, I only have one more match left in my career. So I was like, all right, let's do this. And I ended up winning in a crazy manner. I got a 2, and at the last second I almost gave up a takedown, but I ended time right now. So I make the final. I win that match, but I know I'm like, okay. So now I get the same feeling of like, okay, now I'm in the finals, right? So now I'm in the finals. Worst I can do is second, you know, and things like that. So, but that semifinals match was, I flipped the switch right before. I was like, or I can make the final. Like I was like, oh, I'm an All-American, like it's okay. Or I can make the finals. And so I decided, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go out there, wrestle really hard, and really try to want to be in the finals. And that's what I did, and that's when I got to the final.
Your ride then, as well, as he goes through and picks up the couple of wins and gets into the bigger matches and eventually to day 2.
Yeah, I don't want to cry. It was just watching him, you know, like once again, he in the quarterfinals, the last round of the first day, if you win, you plays. If not, you got to go to that blood round that he struggled with. He's wrestling the only guy that beat him all year. I mean, it's not an easy road. I mean, he's facing, you know, his demons right there, you know, and it's right in front of his face, and it goes all the way to the last overtime, you know, and to see him get over that hump, and then once again, you see the relief look on his face, but then also realize, like, you know, I kind of had to like smack him like, hey, we still got work to do. This is great, you know, great compliments, congratulations, but hey, there's more out there for him, and you know, kind of get him back focus on that. But like I said, it was very special to watch him battle his demons and get over those humps.
Did you tell him anything that night or that morning, or were you kind of hands off?
I was just letting him know just the schedule at that point. You know, I don't want to say it's on him, you know, but it's he was already in a good mental state, you know, watching him, you know, handle that first day. Now it's just, hey, this is what we need to do. Make sure you rest. It's time we're leaving. You know, all the little schedule stuff. That way he doesn't have to worry about that stuff. All he needs to worry about is eating, sleeping, and focus on himself. So.
Do you do much scouting? Obviously, with team sports, you're looking at plays. What are they tendencies, all that stuff. Wrestling. Are you doing the same thing? Are you looking at footage? Is Coach Flores or Coach Kevin looking at hey, this guy does this or what?
I do not touch footage. I don't watch anybody. I don't watch their matches before me. I don't watch anything. I learned that's how I thrive. You know, some people like it. A lot of people actually watch footage. A lot of people watch film and things like that. But not me. I realize that my toughest opponent is myself. You know, my toughest problem is me. You know, I have to go against me and my mind. If my mind is right, I'll do anything I can, and I'll do everything I can to win. But I just I gotta worry about me. I gotta worry about what I'm good at. I gotta worry about my mind, and I gotta worry about just letting it fly and relaxing. You know, so that guy likes this move. Well, we'll see if it works when he does it against me. You know, that guy likes to do this. All right, well, that's fine. He has to, in a sense. In a crazy mind of mine, I say they got to deal with me. You know, they got to watch film on me. I don't want to watch film on anybody. I respect them, and I know they're very good wrestlers. But if I get psyched out, worry about what he's doing, trying to prepare for his stuff, no, it's gonna become my world once I start wrestling, and I'm gonna do what I'm good at. You know, I'm not gonna worry about what he does or what anybody else does. I'm gonna worry about me, and I'm gonna go out there and give it 110%. That's it. You know.
Isaiah Lulin, if hopefully I say that right, a guy who came from Baker, moves to one of the perennial powerhouses. You beat two of the top teams, wrestlers from the top two teams in the country. Life and Grandview have been going at it for team titles the past however many years now. But he makes the move to the Grandview. Now you're taking him on, and then walk us through the process of becoming a national champion.
Oh, man.
He's the number 1 seed. Everything's probably in
his favor, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think once I'm at the finals, I haven't sat down and talked about it yet, but I think I didn't realize where I was at in a sense. I knew where I was in my finals, right, obviously, but in a sense, I was still kind of soaking in the fact that I'm even at this tournament on day 2, you know, after failing 3 years in a row, you know, 3 years there. So I'm still kind of trying to deal with that, trying to understand, dang, it's day 2, I'm really here, I'm really doing this right now. You know, this is crazy. To me, it's crazy in my head. But it's not that crazy because of all the work I put in and everything I've done to get there, but it's still crazy because it's, you know, one never gives their self enough credit, right? You're just well, yeah, I worked really hard, but I've done that every other year. But it's different now. I really trained my mind this time, and I was there. So going into the finals, I'm kind of preparing. I'm very calm. I'm very relaxed. Again, I don't want to make it much bigger than it really is. You know, at the end of the day, it's a wrestling match. Yeah, it's an important one, but it's just a wrestling match. You know, and I've been wrestling forever. So just relax. And I just kept telling myself, relax, enjoy the moment, soak it in. This is your last match ever in your college career, and have fun. You know, understand that, yeah, a national title is at stake, but it's realistically your last match. Go out with the bang, have fun, enjoy the moment, you know.
The championship match then, as a coach, how do you handle that? If you can't, I don't know.
Yeah, no. Like I said, you know, I hate to dwell on the past, but, you know, with Ricky Padilla, you know, some of my failures with him and him handling that, you know, I learned from my mistakes and helped, and that's really what helped set Gerardo up for handling the, you know, they got a parade, there's a big 4-hour break, you know, just things that you got to prepare for, you know, and so just kind of helping him with that, and once again, it's just right before the match, I just remember hey, smacking him on the butt and said, "You're the best in the country, let's go," you know, and that's all it was. I mean, he was ready to go. He was ready to go, and you know, the best part is he was wrestling pressure free, and knowing that kid and watching how close he wrestles matches, #1 seed, undefeated all year, blah blah blah. The hype's on him, and the more, you know, the longer the match went, it was going to favor us because, you know, we break people, and we broke that man at that period. So it was awesome.
So I got up there, I warmed up. I was warming up for a while, to be honest, more than I would like, but I knew that that's how I thrive. I have to warm up, I have to keep warm. So I get there, run to the stage, you know, and I start. The match starts, and it's just, you know, I'm wrestling a tough guy, 4-time All-American. So things are not opening up. There's nothing for me in offensive-wise, but there's also nothing for him offensive-wise. Like, it was just high IQ.
The immovable force against a never immovable object.
Yeah, exactly. So it wasn't the most exciting match ever, but the wrestling community or the guys, coaches and things like that understand that it's high IQ wrestling, which is high IQ wrestling, and it's just, and I have to stay the course. Again, I have to keep my heavy hands. I have to stay low. I have to listen to my coaches. Just keep doing what I was doing. So, and then honestly, the match went where it went because that's where we took it, you know. So it went to distance because that's where we decided to go, you know. Like, we both couldn't open up each other. He got a couple shots, I stuffed them and things like that. But the whole time I'm thinking, as the time progresses, I really was thinking, if time keeps going, this is good for me, you know. Like, if time keeps advancing, it's good for me. Like, I think I thrive in deep waters, you know. So I know what it's like to be in deep water. So I was like, just relax, enjoy the moment, keep wrestling tough. I kept listening to my coaches. Not much was going on realistically, but I had to. But at one mistake, a good wrestler like that will capitalize on you quick, right? So there was no room for margin of error there. Like, I had to be very compact, very smart with my wrestling. So, but then again, think about the moment you're in. You're on a stage, people are yelling, but it just got to the point where we got to overtime. And that's when I was like, okay, this is deep waters, you know, and we're going to see. I heard a quote one time that said, you're going to show him where his road ends and where yours starts, you know, and it kind of sounds crazy, but it's like, I really worked really hard for this. So I was like, I know I thrive here. I know I'm good here. I've won a couple matches here. I know what it takes to win in this situation. And he took a shot, and I capitalized off of it, and that was it. And I genuinely couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe it, realistically, because, you know, I'm a 3-time top 12 wrestler, and I just flip a switch and I win a national title. So I looked at the coach. I really blacked out, if I'm being honest. I got the takedown, I get up, and I'm like, oh, if you watch the video again, I really say, oh my goodness, like, no way. And obviously celebrate, have a moment with my coaches, I celebrate with them, but even after that, it was very emotional. I just couldn't believe that I really did it, but not because I didn't deserve it, but I just couldn't believe that someone that failed that many times, 3 times, you know, had a bunch of adversity, a bunch of injuries, could stay the course and come back and do that, you know. So, and that was me, right? So it's crazy to me that for me, it was just all those losses and all those times I had to face adversity that came to me when I won that national title. I wasn't really emotional over winning the national title. I was more emotional for the side that I faced so many troubles and like times and rocky roads on the journey there, you know. So I was more obsessed with the journey than anything than the title. I mean, the title means a lot to me. Of course, I feel a sense of relief, but in a sense, I think the journey, like no one, in a sense, Coach Caleb and I talked, like, they didn't go what you went through, you know, like they didn't deal with losing top 12 3 times in a row. They didn't deal with all those injuries you dealt with. They didn't deal with those rewiring your brain to believe that you're good enough, you know, after coming back off an LCL injury, coming back after a hamstring injury, a rib injury, you know, you had to rewire yourself to believe in yourself again. And I think the coaches did a great job in doing that. And obviously my family and all that took part in this process. I think I was very happy, not because of won the title, but because of what it took to get there, you know. It was all part of process, I guess. You know, like all those failures, all those, you know, I always told everybody I would always end my season very upset with tears in my eyes, you know, because I failed, you know, and I fell short from my goal. So to finally end the season on top, it was kind of rewarding and just, I get the chills talking about it, but it's just kind of still setting in, you know, like I still don't really believe it happened, but it happened, you know. So
It did.
I'm just happy and grateful that I was there and able to finish up on the high horse, you know.
The celebration, how do you feel?
Now that, you know, it was, you know, there's a lot of naysayers, you know, and, you know, people don't believe what you're doing until it's done, you know, and to see all that hard work that he did, you know, not to make it about us or the program, but all the hard work he did, and people, you know, there's naysayers. Okay, he has a great season, but can he do it at the end? You know, and to see him accomplish this goal and seeing that disbelief look, you know, it was amazing. It was amazing, and I just think back, you know, his journey over here, and then I think about our journey as a program, you know, coming from no wrestling room to a wrestling room to the top of the stage and top of the podium. You know, it's awesome, but you know, now I just hope it motivates the other guys. You know,
I mean, there's probably a debate, and Tom Brady retired. Like, you want a Super Bowl? Is that where you want to retire on? Do you want to try and do it again? But
Yeah.
there's probably no better way than to go out on top. And only the first non-track and field or team sport athlete to do that. And
Crazy.
how cool is that to then lay down that road going forward for the program and some of the guys that are coming up behind you?
I think that it gives me a sense of peace because I want people to understand that it can be done here, and I feel like a lot of not a lot of other teams, but just with people in general couldn't believe it yet because we're a new program still. You know, we're our fourth year. Like we're still growing. We're still developing. The guys are learning. The coaches are learning. Like we're all like soaking this in. Like we're starting to get going here, right? And there's going to be big things happening here. But I feel like a lot of people, it's hard to buy in, right? Like unless you're in the fire with us at those practices, at those conversations, at those speeches that the coaches give us, all that stuff, you don't know what's going on in that wrestling room. You don't know if they're serious. People don't know, right? So I feel like doing this can let the wrestling community know, or anybody who's interested in wrestling college, like, Vanguard is serious. You know, we're serious. We got All-Americans every year. We just had a national champion. So I feel like I can solidify that idea that, yeah, those guys are serious at Vanguard. Those guys, the wrestling team there is serious about winning and is serious about competing, you know? And I think a lot of people, not only like the people that are looking at us, right, but the competition as well was like, at the beginning it was it's hard to take us serious, you know, we're losing duels because we have holes because of injuries and things like that, but I think some people didn't take it serious enough, and I think now that they see what the coaches can do with somebody who's obviously hard, that's had a hard pass, you know, losing in the most important moments of his career, and then having a bunch of injuries and trying to get him, hey, by the way, don't forget who you once were. Like, you were an animal. Like, you can go back to that. You just have to work at it. And you're like, yeah. Like, you know, it sounds kind of like cliche. Like, yeah, sure. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna be the same after this injury or things like that. They drove in my head like, you can win it. Like, you are the man. Every day I walk out the room and I had Ricky outside, national champion. I'd be like, yeah, but it really happened, you know, and things like that really stick with you. And then I had Caleb after every match at the Nationals, like, the best in the country and you can't be stopped. And I was like, and it's hard to believe, right? Because you're like, me? And you're like, yeah, sure, you know? Even though I have that belief, it's still kind of like hard to like, okay, yeah, sure. Like, I kind of believe you, but it's like, after everything I've gone through, like, I don't know, you know? Like, so I think it's just, I'm happy for the coaches because they get to see their hard work, like, on display, right? They get to see their hard work actually triumph, you know? And so, and I'm happy for me, obviously, and I'm happy for everybody who poured any type of support into me. I'm just grateful, you know, and I think the guys behind me could see that. And Caleb talks about it all the time, that good things happen here at Vanguard. You know, a champion can come from the Vanguard down, the wrestling room, you know? you don't need all these extra things. A lot of people get caught up in other things. It's like all you need is the great support system that we have here, and you just got to buy in, you know. And I think everybody who's coming after me, or who if they can take anything away from me, is just buy in, be coachable, and keep learning and keep working hard, and you can do anything, you know. So I think that's my biggest thing.
What do you hope his legacy will be here, and what are you hoping that any of the guys for next year can take going forward?
You know, a trailblazer. I mean, his leadership, I mean, he's not a rah-rah guy. He's a lead by example. And the best part about it is he set a great one. You know, he set a great one, and now I'm not selling a vision that it can happen here or it might happen here. It does happen here, you know, and I have, you know, I'm really excited about my freshmen and sophomores and juniors that we have still on the team. You know, now it's them, someone needs, who's next? You know, I can sell who's next, because now they saw what it took. They have the talent to do what it needs to be done to make it happen, and you know, that's the legacy of Gerardo Hernandez. Now it's just follow his path. He set the trailblaze. He trailblazed for us. Now follow his path, and it can happen here.
Yeah.
What's life for Gerardo now? Obviously, you graduate into the semester, get the degree, maybe eat again?
Yeah.
I don't know, without concern. What's your game plan here?
Right now, again, I'm gonna approach my life now how I use everything that wrestling's taught me, right? All the discipline, all the craziness. I probably will worry about what the next most important thing is, right? I don't want to stress too much about where I'm gonna work or what I'm gonna do as my career, you know. What's next task right now is graduating, and that's what I'm gonna focus on and attack for now. And I'm gonna try to set myself up for success, you know. I'm gonna try to be ready for whatever opportunity comes my way or whatever opportunity I want to seek. So I think for now, I want to just relax. I think it's been a very stressful 12 years, you know, wrestling year-round, training year-round. So I'm just enjoying being a student, and, you know, I'm just going to prepare and, you know, keep working hard and working out, and keep working hard in life, you know. So I'm just going to prepare for just to set myself up for success and worry about the next task, which is graduating for me. And then after that, you know, we can open up our horizons, you know. So, but I don't want to get too stressed out yet, you know. I think I have the rest of my life to be stressed. So, like, right now I'm just enjoying being a student, just kind of relaxing. And then once I graduate, I think I'm ready to just expand my horizons, you know, and we'll see where it goes, you know. Sometimes we think we have it figured out, but there's other plans in store for us sometimes, you know. So I think that's what's next for me.
You're the Cascade Wrestler of the Year. You're the first wrestling champion, and you're a national champion at 170 pounds. Gerardo Hernandez, congratulations on not only a huge achievement, but a great career and a fantastic story. And we are so happy for you and so proud of all you've done.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate the support and the nice words from all of you, the staff here, and everybody is here.